Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, and we can come back to this in a minute. I kind of want to talk overall NFL right now. But Lamar Jackson straight up stole the trophy away from Christian McCaffrey in literally 5 days since we spoke last, John Martin, when I said it was a Run CMC award. Lamar going 18 of 21 for 231 and 5 touchdowns, I think, took that trophy away from Christian McCaffrey. But, man, last week I asked you if it was disrespectful to the Baltimore Ravens to be listed behind the San Francisco 49ers when it comes to the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl. After this weekend, I think that it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was, by the way, do you think Baltimore could beat Michigan? Do you think they could beat Michigan on a neutral field?
I mean,
I'm not so sure
it's
after
a Harbaugh
tonight.
v. Harbaugh coaching matchup, right?
It was, yeah. We got to get that. We got to get that for sure. I think I would probably have Michigan as a -1 on a neutral. Yeah, look, that was extremely impressive, even just on its own, right? On its own volition. But the fact that happened a week after, not even a week after, that was a short week after clobbering the 49ers in San Francisco. And the market was very much betting against Baltimore in this spot. That number was at 3 at kick. And it was trickling down all week long. And that was despite the fact that there was going to be no Mostert. That was despite the fact that there was going to be no Jalen Waddle. So the market just did not buy the Baltimore Ravens doing that in back-to-back weeks. And I understand it. I mean, it was a shitty spot. There's no doubt about that. As NFL games go, that's as bad as it gets. So I understand, why the market was skeptical. But, yeah, I mean, they just showed you, they don't even have Mark Andrews. They don't even have their top tight end weapon here. They just showed you what they're capable of. They just showed you how good they are. And so, look, to me, it feels like we're on a collision course for a rematch. The NFC, as we talked about, Rob, is unserious. It is totally unserious. Between the clown circus car show that is Detroit and Dallas, both coaches just miserable. And I would say with Dan Campbell, it's more of like he doesn't have a gear. It's just aggression all the time. There's no touch. It's like, dude, you got to have a little bit of ability to, okay, third gear, fourth gear. No, it's like 10th gear all the time. He's always on 10. And McCarthy is, I think, as bad as they get. And Philly just lost to Arizona at home. The NFC is unserious. So, and then you start talking about the AFC. I mean, Kansas City, I know they got right a little bit against Cincinnati, but it's hard to know exactly what to take of that with Jake Browning in there. Miami's really banged up, and they just dismantled them. Buffalo, I mean, Baltimore's path it's getting easier by the day, it feels like, for a Super Bowl appearance at the very least.
I looked at that game, and I went with Baltimore to cover, not because I thought that Baltimore was going to do what they did, but it's like you mentioned, without Jalen Waddle, without Raheem Mostert, who had really kind of been, Raheem Mostert had kind of been the touchdown back. I mean, it's great to have A-Chain back doing what he did, 14 carries, 107 yards. But it had been Mostert that had been finishing drives for the Dolphins. He was almost, for about 4 or 5 weeks there, he was a real good touchdown prop guy for me for a handful in a minute. That being said, man, I am looking at a Miami team that was out 2 of their big weapons. I didn't see 56 going on the board, right? Like I thought Baltimore was going to win the game, but I was thinking in the neighborhood of like 27-20, 27-21. The fact that they not just hung 50, here's the thing. It's not just that they hung 56. It's that they had 28 on the board at halftime, and it looked like it was going to be easy, right? It didn't even really look like they were breaking a sweat. It was 56, and it came easy. This wasn't, 21 points late in the game where Miami was going 5 wide with a backup quarterback and floating everything. This was a win. This was an outright dub, an outright beating. And now I'm looking at the rest of the AFC, and I'm going, who beats them in Baltimore at this point? Who's the team that gets them in Baltimore? It's not the Dolphins. We know that. Josh Allen and the Bills have had, kind of a hot streak. They're on a 4-game win streak, but we know Josh Allen's going to turn the ball over a time or two when he's under pressure and on the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that was a really, really awful game for the league, because they also missed. They egregiously missed the tripping call that was assigned to the Dallas Cowboys when it actually occurred on the Detroit Lions. So the penalty was on the Lions, but the Cowboys were assessed the penalty. And that previous drive where that led to 3, obviously that would have changed everything. It's a first down as opposed to, first and 25. So that happened even before the ineligible man discussion. That was confusion, and I've seen some people come out and say now that the Lions sort of were to blame for that because they were being intentionally deceptive. And I could actually see that. People that played the game, like Ross Tucker said that. So I kind of defer to him on those situations. Like when I try to explain, like, for example, my sister-in-law's in town, I try to explain to her what happened. She don't know what the hell. I don't know how to explain it to her, quite honestly. Like, it's confusing for me, but if somebody who played the game is saying that the Lions got what they deserve because they were trying to be deceptive, sending multiple offensive linemen to the ref, that's probably part of the game. But I do think in terms of the league, people bet real money on these games, lots of money in some cases. And it's bad for your product when, people are even having to wonder, because this crew's actually had issues dating back, well into the season that are documented. And so the fact that, we're still sitting here in January having this discussion is definitely a black eye for the league, in my opinion.
I've for years fought the fight that the NFL's not rigged, it's not scripted, but then stuff like that happens. Stuff like the Saints-Rams missed pass interference call happens. Stuff happens like that. And by the way, and I'm assuming they still do it. Now, I have been to a couple of NFL games in the last couple of years in Charlotte covering games. It's been a while since I've just been as a fan. But don't the officials jump on the PA and announce when a guy checks in as eligible, right? Like, don't they cut on the mic and go, number 68 has reported as eligible. Yeah. So my thought would be that if they screwed the pooch there, if he did report and they don't announce it, like, and here's what I don't know. I know the refs are wearing mics. Don't the refs wear mics? And if so, is it open communication or do they click them on and off? And I'm not talking about the PA mics. I'm talking about the headset that they use to communicate as a crew. Like, I would give $1 million. I wouldn't. I work in radio. I don't have it. But if I didn't work in radio and I had $1 million, I would pay it for the audio to hear if that was the case, right? Like Jared Goff came out and checked in after the game of the post game, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not saying the fix was in," and I'm like, "Dude, that's exactly what you say when you think the fix is in." You know what I mean? Like, don't. It is the equivalent of when somebody says, not to be racist, but whatever they say next is going to be racist as hell. Right. If you come out and go, "I'm not saying it's a conspiracy," you're saying it's a conspiracy, my guy, and he's not wrong for doing it.